This 4-year-old beggar girl is given dirty water to drink at a diner until a millionaire kicks the owner out and something shocking happens. Comment what you think will happen. Your opinion is very important. And subscribe to my channel to support my work. Your help is very important. The scorching July sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty streets of Harmony Creek, a small town in rural Alabama, when the tiny figure of Lily appeared at the door of the local diner, Ma's Kitchen. The 6-year-old girl walked barefoot, her small feet stained with the red clay of the cracked sidewalks, and the floral dress that had once been pink now sported shades of brown, and tears that told stories of nights spent sleeping rough. "Please, mister, can I have a little water?" she asked with a weak voice, leaning on the frame of the cloudy glass door. Her big dark eyes shone with a mixture of hope and resignation that shouldn't exist on a child's face. Earl, the 45-year-old manager who ran the establishment that afternoon, looked up from the beer he was drinking with 2 regular customers. A cruel smile formed on his thick lips as he watched the girl. "Hey, fellas, look who showed up," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. "The little street princess wants some water." The 2 men at the table laughed, one of them shaking his head in contempt. Earl slowly got up, pretending to consider the request. "Water, huh? Well, I do have water." He grabbed a dirty plastic cup that was on the counter near a damp floor cloth and filled it with water directly from the tap in the sink where he washed the dishes. The water came out cloudy, with small fragments floating on the surface. "Here's your water, princess," he said, holding out the cup while stifling a laugh. "Free, like everything else in your life, right?" Lily accepted the cup with her 2 small hands, trembling slightly. She had learned in the last 2 months on the streets that anything was better than nothing. She was about to bring the liquid to her lips when a deep voice echoed behind her. "What kind of man are you?" Everyone turned. In the entrance of the diner stood Richard Sterling, a 52-year-old man, tall and imposing, wearing an impeccable white dress shirt and black dress pants. His graying hair was perfectly combed, and his brown eyes burned with indignation. The businessman had stopped to buy a soda when he witnessed the scene. "Excuse me, sir?" stammered Earl, immediately changing his tone of voice when he realized it was someone important. Richard walked towards them with firm steps, his presence completely dominating the small room. "I asked what kind of man you are. What kind of person gives dirty water to a thirsty child?" I don't know what you're talking about." Earl tried to defend himself, but his hands trembled visibly. "You don't know?" Richard took the cup from Lily's hands and held it up for everyone to see. "This water is filthy. Would you give this to your own kid to drink?" The silence in the diner was deafening. The 2 customers had stopped laughing and watched the scene with growing discomfort. Lily hid behind a chair, frightened by the tension in the air. "Sir, I didn't mean to," Earl began. "Didn't mean to what? Humiliate a child? Make fun of the hunger and thirst of a girl who clearly needs help?" Richard's voice grew in intensity but remained controlled. "Where's your humanity?" Earl looked around, realizing that other customers had stopped to watch the confrontation. Some were discreetly taking pictures with their cell phones, his face flushed with shame and anger mixed. "Look at her," Richard continued, gently pointing to Lily. "Really look. She's 6 years old. 6 years old, and you think it's funny to mistreat her?" "I wasn't mistreating anyone," Earl muttered, but his defense sounded weak even to himself. "Then explain to me what that whole act was. The laughter, the comments, the deliberately dirty water." Richard took a step forward. "Do you have children, Earl?" The man nodded quickly, surprised that the stranger knew his name. "How would you feel if someone treated your children that way? If they were thirsty and hungry, and someone humiliated them in public for fun?" The question hung in the air like a devastating accusation. Earl lowered his head, unable to sustain Richard's penetrating gaze. Around him, the murmur of conversations had ceased completely. Even the sounds of the street seemed distant. I was just kidding," he tried, but even the customers who had laughed before now watched him with disapproval. "Kidding?" Richard laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. With a child's dignity. Is that your idea of fun? The businessman turned to Lily, who was still hidden behind the chair, watching everything with wide eyes. He crouched down to her level, his expression changing completely, becoming soft and gentle. "What's your name, little one?" "Lily," she whispered, her voice almost inaudible. "Lily, what a pretty name." He smiled at her, a genuine smile that lit up his stern face. "Are you really thirsty?" She nodded timidly. Richard got up and walked to the counter, completely ignoring Earl. He grabbed a clean glass from the shelf and filled it with mineral water from a bottle in the refrigerator. He tested the temperature and checked that it was appropriate before handing it to Lily. "Here you go, clean, fresh water." Lily took the glass and drank eagerly, as if she hadn't had water in days. When she finished, she wiped her mouth with the back of her hand and smiled shyly at Richard. "Thank you, sir." "You're welcome, sweetheart." He turned again to Earl, who was now visibly embarrassed by the disapproving glances of the customers. "And you, what do you have to say?" Earl mumbled something incoherent, avoiding looking at anyone in the diner. Shame consumed him to such an extent that without saying anything else, he simply took off his apron, threw it on the counter, and left through the back door, leaving the establishment completely unattended. The customers began to get up and leave, clearly uncomfortable with what they had witnessed. In a few minutes, the diner was empty, except for Richard and Lily. "Where do you live, Lily?" he asked gently. The girl pointed vaguely to the street. "Over there." But the simple answer hit Richard like a punch in the stomach. He took a better look at the child, the disheveled hair, the dirty clothes, the injured feet, the excessive thinness. All the signs were there, glaring and impossible to ignore. "How long have you been living on the street?" "I can't count too good," she replied, shrugging her shoulders. "Since Grandma passed away at the hospital and never came back." At that moment, Richard Sterling, a successful businessman and owner of a regional supermarket chain, made a decision that would completely change his life, and that of a 6-year-old girl he had just met. But what he didn't know was that this decision would trigger a series of events that would call into question everything he thought he knew about family, justice, and redemption. The afternoon in Harmony Creek was just beginning, but for Lily and Richard, nothing would ever be the same. Richard held out his hand to Lily, but she recoiled instinctively. 2 months living on the streets had taught the girl that the kindness of adults almost always came with a price she couldn't afford to pay. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly, keeping his hand outstretched. "How about we have lunch together? I'm sure you're hungry." Lily's stomach rumbled loudly, revealing that she hadn't eaten since the morning before, when she managed to get some leftovers at the farmer's market. She looked at the well-dressed man, trying to decipher his intentions. There was something in his eyes that reminded her of her Grandma Carol in moments of tenderness. "I don't have money to pay," she murmured. "I'll pay. Don't worry." Reluctantly, but overcome by hunger, Lily nodded. Richard guided her to his car, a discreet black sedan, and helped her into the back seat. During the drive to the restaurant, he watched in the rearview mirror the girl's face, which looked out the window with fascination, as if seeing the world for the first time. "Tell me about your grandma," he asked gently. "Grandma Carol took care of me," Lily began, still looking out the window. "She sold cookies in the park, and always said I was her smart girl. One day she fell on the ground and wouldn't wake up right. The hospital men took her, but they wouldn't let me go with her." "And your parents?" "I don't have a dad. Mom Rachel works far away in New York City. She sends money to Grandma, but it's been a long time since she's come to see me." Richard processed the information in silence. The situation was even worse than he had imagined. A completely abandoned child, without any adult responsible for her, surviving on the streets of a small town. In the restaurant, Lily ate with controlled voracity, trying not to show how hungry she was. Richard ordered a simple meal for her, rice, beans, meat, and salad, and watched as she devoured each bite as if it were the last. "Lily, where have you been sleeping?" "In the park near the church. Sometimes under the drugstore awning when it rains." The answer hit Richard like a stab in the back. He thought of his own house, with its 5 empty rooms, the loneliness that had accompanied him for years since he had decided to focus only on business, avoiding lasting relationships. "What if I took you to stay at my house for a few days, just until we find a suitable place for you?" Lily stopped eating and stared at him suspiciously. "Why? What do you want from me?" The question, asked with the seriousness of an adult, revealed a forced maturity that broke Richard's heart. "I don't want anything other than to help you. No child should live on the street." "Everyone says that at first," she replied, returning to her food. "Then they always want something." Richard wondered how many people had already tried to take advantage of that vulnerable child. The anger he felt was so intense that he needed to take a deep breath to control himself. "Lily, I promise you that I only want to help you. You can leave home whenever you want. You can leave at any time. But at least for today, you'd have a safe place to sleep." She studied him for long minutes, chewing slowly as she thought. Finally, she nodded. "Just for today." Richard's house was in an upscale neighborhood in Harmony Creek, a modern 2-story building surrounded by well-kept gardens. When Lily got out of the car, she stood watching the residence with wide eyes. "Is it really yours?" "It is." He smiled at her reaction. "Want to see inside?" The house was immaculate and impersonal, decorated with expensive but cold furniture. Lily walked slowly through the rooms, carefully touching the objects as if she feared breaking them. "This can be your room," Richard said, opening the door to one of the guest rooms. The large bed, the light wood furniture, and the view of the garden created a welcoming environment. "Mine." Lily climbed onto the bed, sinking into the soft mattress. "It's too big for me." "Big rooms are for big dreams," he replied, surprised by his own poetic response. That night, after Lily took a long bath and put on a clean t-shirt that Richard had bought on the way, she sat on the bed and looked out the window. Outside, crickets chirped, and a soft breeze swayed the trees in the garden. "Mr. Sterling?" "You can just call me Richard." "Okay. Do you have children?" The question caught him off guard. "I don't." "Why?" "I never found the right person to start a family with." Lily nodded as if that made perfect sense to her. "Grandma always said that family isn't just who's born together. Sometimes we choose who we want our family to be." Before Richard could answer, she had already wrapped herself in the blankets and closed her eyes. He watched her for a few minutes, realizing how small and fragile she looked in the big bed. The next morning, he woke up to noises coming from the kitchen. He went downstairs and found Lily trying to reach a glass in the high cabinet, standing on a chair that was rocking dangerously. "Hey, be careful!" He ran to hold her. "Just wanted water," she explained, embarrassed. "You can ask for anything you need. You don't have to fend for yourself here." While preparing breakfast for the two of them, Richard realized that there was something different about the house. It didn't seem so quiet, so empty anymore. Lily's presence had brought an energy that he didn't know was missing. "Richard," she said suddenly, while eating bread with butter, "do you know a lady named Sarah Jenkins?" "Sarah Jenkins? No, why?" "She was asking about me in the park yesterday morning, said she worked with children." A chill ran down Richard's spine. Social worker. He knew that sooner or later someone from the city would become aware of Lily's situation. What he didn't know was that this person was already watching them, and that their arrival would completely change the dynamic that was beginning to form between him and the girl. What did she want to know? Where I lived, who took care of me, stuff like that. Lily took a bite of her bread. I said I lived with Grandma, but I don't think she believed me. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Richard went to answer it and came face to face with a woman of about 38. Black hair tied in a severe bun, wearing formal clothes and carrying a briefcase of documents. "Mr. Richard Sterling?" "Yes. My name is Sarah Jenkins. I'm a social worker with the city." I need to speak with you about a minor who, according to our information, is in your care." The first obstacle had arrived at Richard's door, and from the determined expression on the woman's face, he realized that the battle for Lily's informal custody would be much more complicated than he had imagined. Sarah Jenkins entered Richard's house with the rigid posture of someone who was used to dealing with delicate situations. Her eyes quickly scanned the environment, cataloguing every detail of the luxury around her, while Lily hid behind the living room sofa. "Where is the child?" she asked, adjusting her thin-rimmed glasses. "Lily is here, but she's scared," Richard replied, trying to stay calm. "May I know exactly what your concern is?" "My concern, Mr. Sterling, is that a 6-year-old girl had disappeared from the streets 2 days ago and now shows up at the house of a single man without any official explanation." Sarah opened her briefcase and took out some forms. "This raises serious questions about child protection. I took her off the street because she was being mistreated. I thought anyone would do the same. Anyone would call social services, not take the child home." Sarah made a note in her pad. "Do you have any training in caring for traumatized children? Any experience with vulnerable minors?" Richard felt irritation growing. "I don't need a diploma to have compassion." "But you do need legal authorization to take custody of a minor." Sarah turned to where Lily was hiding. "Lily, can you come here, please? I'm not going to hurt you." The girl slowly emerged from behind the sofa, looking alternately at Richard and the social worker. There was fear in her eyes, but also a determination that surprised both adults. "You're the lady who was looking for me in the park," Lily said. "That's right. My name is Sarah, and my job is to take care of children who need help." Sarah knelt down to Lily's height. "Are you okay here? Is Mr. Sterling treating you well?" Lily nodded vigorously. "He gave me food and a big room, and he doesn't hit me or yell. And he doesn't hit me or yell." The words echoed in Sarah's mind like a red alert. How many children had she cared for who considered that the maximum standard of acceptable treatment? "Lily, do you remember your grandma? The last time you saw her?" The girl's face saddened. "Grandma fell, and the men took her to the hospital. I tried to go with them, but they said children couldn't go in." "And do you know which hospital she's in?" "City Hospital," Lily replied. "I go there sometimes, but they don't let me in." Sarah exchanged a meaningful look with Richard. "Mr. Sterling, can I speak with you in private?" They went to the kitchen, leaving Lily in the living room watching television. Sarah crossed her arms and faced Richard with a stern expression. "I'm going to be direct with you. Single, wealthy men with no history, with children who suddenly decide to rescue orphan girls from the streets, raise huge red flags in my job." "What are you insinuating exactly?" Richard asked, his voice low but full of indignation. "I'm not insinuating anything. I'm stating that I need to investigate your motivations and your qualifications to care for a traumatized child. My motivations are simple. I couldn't see a child suffering and do nothing." "Everyone says that," Sarah sighed. "Mr. Sterling, understand my position. My job is to protect children, and statistically..." "Statistically what? Men like me are predators?" "Statistically, single men without family ties who offer to care for orphaned children need to be thoroughly investigated." Sarah didn't back down from Richard's growing anger. "It's protocol." Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway, drawn by the raised voices. "Are you arguing about me?" Both adults turned to her, embarrassed. Sarah knelt down again. "We're not arguing, honey. We're just talking about what's best for you." "What's best for me is to stay here," Lily said, with disconcerting simplicity. "Richard is good to me." But you need to go to school, receive medical care, have a regularized legal situation," Sarah explained patiently. "I can do all that here." Sarah got up and looked at Richard. "Can you really? Do you have time to take a child to the doctor, help with homework, attend school meetings? Does your work allow that flexibility?" The question hit Richard hard. He ran a company with hundreds of employees, traveled constantly, worked late. How could he reconcile that with the needs of a child? "I can reorganize," he replied, but his voice sounded less convincing. "Mr. Sterling, I'm not trying to be cruel, but Lily needs stability, not temporary goodwill." Sarah put the papers in her briefcase. "I'm going to check on her grandma's situation at the hospital and look for other relatives. In the meantime, she can stay here, but under supervision." "Supervision?" "I'll make regular visits. And I want her to start attending school immediately." After Sarah left, Richard sat on the sofa next to Lily, who was distractedly playing with a remote control. "Lily, would you like to go to school?" She frowned. "School's boring, and the kids will laugh at me." "Why would they laugh?" "Because I don't have a mom or dad, because I lived on the street, because my clothes are different." She shrugged. "Kids always laugh." Richard realized that there was much more complexity to the situation than he had imagined. It wasn't enough to offer home and food. Lily carried deep emotional wounds that he didn't know how to heal. "What if we bought you new clothes? What if I talked to the principal to explain your situation?" "Would you really do that?" "Of course." Lily was quiet for a moment, thinking, "Can I still visit Grandma at the hospital?" "Of course you can. In fact, how about we go there today? Maybe I can talk to the doctors." Lily's face lit up for the first time since Sarah's visit. "Really? Will they let me see her?" "We'll try." At the city hospital, Richard used his influence and some strategic donations to get information about Carol Smith. What he discovered devastated him. The 63-year-old woman was in a vegetative state after a severe stroke with no prospect of recovery. "Can I see her?" Lily asked the doctor. "Dr. Thompson," a man tired from excessive shifts, looked at Richard for guidance. "She's the granddaughter," Richard explained. "She has a right to visit." In room 204, Carol Smith lay motionless in the hospital bed, connected to machines that emitted constant beeps. Lily approached the bed and held her grandma's hand. "Hi, Grandma, I brought a friend. He's taking care of me until you get better." Richard watched the scene with a lump in his throat. Lily's innocence, who still believed that her grandma would recover, contrasted painfully with the medical reality he had just heard. "Grandma, when you wake up, you're going to like Richard. He's kind, like you always said people should be." At that moment, Dr. Thompson pulled Richard into the hallway. "Sir, I need to be clear with you. Mrs. Smith is not going to recover. The brain damage was too extensive." "How long does she have?" "Days, maybe weeks. No more than that." Richard looked back at the room where Lily was talking animatedly with her unconscious grandma, telling her about her new house and her new room. "Does the girl know?" "Not yet. We thought it best to wait until someone from the family—" "She doesn't have anyone else. Just her mom, who works in New York City and doesn't even know that the situation has reached this point." When they left the hospital, Lily was radiant. "Grandma seemed more rested today. I think she's getting better." Richard didn't have the courage to destroy that hope, but he knew that soon he would have to face a conversation that would forever change the life of the girl he was beginning to love as a daughter. That night, while Lily slept, he stayed awake, planning how to protect her from the pain that was to come, unaware that other, even more shocking discoveries awaited him. 3 weeks had passed since Sarah's first visit, and the routine between Richard and Lily had found a delicate rhythm. The girl still categorically refused to go to school, preferring to spend her days exploring the house and garden, always asking when they could visit her grandma again. On that Saturday morning, Richard was working on financial reports for the company when Lily approached the table, curious about the scattered papers. She watched the spreadsheets in silence for a few minutes before pointing to a specific line. "That number is wrong," she said simply. Richard raised his eyes, surprised. "Wrong how? If you add these 3 parts, it doesn't equal what's written here." Lily climbed onto a chair to get a better view of the spreadsheet. "It should be a bigger number." Intrigued, Richard took the calculator and redid the operation. To his complete surprise, Lily was right. There was a miscalculation that he hadn't even noticed. "How did you know that?" "I don't know. I just looked and saw that it was wrong." She shrugged naturally. "Grandma always said I was smart with numbers. She let me count the money from the cookies she sold." Curious, Richard decided to test the girl's ability. He pointed to another column of numbers. "And here, how much would it be if I added everything up?" Lily studied the numbers for a few seconds, her lips moving silently as she calculated. 283. He checked the calculator. Exactly 283. "Did you do that in your head?" "I did. It's like a game." And throughout the morning, Richard presented different math problems to Lily. She solved each one with disconcerting ease, treating complex numbers as if they were simple jokes. It was a rare skill, almost extraordinary for a child her age. "Lily, would you like to learn more about numbers? Maybe at a special school where they teach more interesting things?" The girl's face immediately closed. "I don't want to go to school. The kids will make fun of me." "Why do you think that?" "Because I lived on the street, because I don't have a mom or dad here, because I'm different." She got off the chair and moved away from the table. "School is for normal kids." Richard got up and knelt in front of her. "Lily, you are normal. You're even special with that incredible ability you have. It doesn't matter. I'm not going." At that moment, the doorbell rang. It was Sarah, arriving for one of her supervision visits. She entered carrying a briefcase even bulkier than the first time. "Good morning, Mr. Sterling. How is Lily?" "Well, thank you. In fact, I just discovered something interesting about her." Sarah turned to the girl, who had hidden behind the sofa again. "Hi, Lily. How are you feeling here?" "Good," she mumbled without leaving her hiding place. "Sarah, I need to show you something," Richard said, pointing to the spreadsheets on the table. "Lily has an extraordinary mathematical ability." The social worker examined the papers with skepticism. "Mr. Sterling, many children are good with basic numbers." "We're not talking about basic numbers. She solved complex calculations in her head in seconds. That makes it even more urgent that she attend school. A child with special abilities needs appropriate educational stimulation. She refuses to go. It's not a matter of her choice, it's mandatory." Sarah opened her briefcase and took out some documents. "By the way, I need to talk to you about some developments in the case." They went to the kitchen, leaving Lily in the living room. Sarah sat at the table with a grave expression. "Mr. Sterling, I managed to contact Lily's mom." Richard's heart raced. "Rachel, does she know the situation?" "Now she knows. I explained everything over the phone. She's coming from New York City." "When?" "She'll be here tomorrow." A heavy silence settled in the kitchen. Richard knew this moment would come, but he wasn't prepared to face it so soon. What about the grandma? Her condition remains the same. The doctors aren't optimistic. Sarah sighed. "Mr. Sterling, I need to be honest with you. Rachel wasn't very happy to hear that a stranger is taking care of her daughter." "Daughter?" "I'm sorry. Her sister. Lily is Rachel's sister, not daughter. The age difference is big, but they are sisters." "Did she express any specific objections?" "Several. Mainly about your motivations." Sarah watched him carefully. "She wants to know why a wealthy businessman would suddenly assume responsibility for a child from the streets." "Because it was the right thing to do." "Everyone says that, Mr. Sterling. But Rachel has worked as a maid in New York City for years, sending money to her mother to take care of Lily. She's sacrificed a lot for this family." Richard felt a pang of guilt. He had automatically assumed that he was saving Lily, without considering that there might already be people fighting to take care of her in the best way possible. What does she intend to do? "Take Lily to New York City." "What about school? The medical treatment Lily may need? The stability?" Rachel argues that she can offer all of that, and she has the legal backing of being the only responsible relative. Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway, clearly having heard part of the conversation. "Who's Rachel?" she asked. Sarah and Richard exchanged glances, realizing that they would have to explain a complicated situation to a child who had already suffered enough abandonment. "Rachel is your older sister, honey," Sarah said gently. "She works far away, but she's always taken care of you from afar, sending money to your grandma. Is she coming to get me?" "She's coming to see you, to talk about the future." Lily's face contorted with fear. "I don't want to leave. I want to stay here with Richard. Lily, sometimes things change, and we need to adapt," Sarah tried to explain. "No!" The girl ran to Richard and clung to his leg. "I'm not going. This is my home now." Richard hugged Lily, feeling her despair, but knowing that he had no legal right over her. In a few hours, a woman he had never met would arrive to claim the child he had begun to love as a daughter. That night, while Lily slept restlessly in the next room, Richard stayed awake, planning arguments that might convince Rachel to let her sister stay. But deep down, he knew that the battle that was to come would be much more complicated than any business negotiation he had ever faced. Sunday morning arrived loaded with tension. Lily woke up earlier than usual and found Richard in the kitchen, nervously stirring a cup of coffee that had long since cooled. "Has she arrived yet?" asked the girl, her voice small and frightened. "Not yet. Sarah said she would arrive in the afternoon." Lily sat at the table but didn't touch the breakfast that Richard had prepared. Her big eyes were fixed on the window, as if expecting to see a stranger appear at any moment to take her away. "Richard, if I leave, will you forget about me?" The question hit Richard like a punch in the gut. He knelt beside her chair and held her small hands. "Lily, I will never forget you, never. You've changed my life." "Then why can't you tell her that I want to stay here? Because Rachel is your real family. She has rights that I don't have." "But you saved me. Doesn't that count?" Before Richard could answer, the doorbell rang. It was only noon, but they both froze. Lily hid behind Richard as he walked to the door. On the other side stood a 28-year-old woman, thin and with tired eyes that resembled Lily's. Rachel wore simple but clean clothes and carried a small worn suitcase. Beside her was Sarah. "Mr. Richard Sterling?" Rachel asked, her voice full of suspicion. "Yes, you must be Rachel. I want to see my sister." "Of course. Come in." Rachel passed Richard without ceremony and stopped when she saw Lily hidden behind the sofa. For a moment her eyes filled with tears, but she quickly regained her composure. "Lily? It's me, Rachel, your sister." The girl slowly came out of hiding, studying the face of the woman in front of her. "You look different from the pictures Grandma had." "I grew up, little one. You've grown a lot too." Rachel knelt down and opened her arms. "Come here." Lily looked at Richard as if asking for permission. He nodded encouragingly. The girl walked slowly to Rachel and accepted a hesitant hug. "I missed you so much," Rachel whispered. "So much. Then why didn't you ever come to see me?" The simple and direct question left Rachel speechless for a moment. Because I needed to work to send money to you and Grandma. Grandma is sick in the hospital." "I know. Sarah told me everything." Rachel got up and looked directly at Richard. "Can we talk?" Sarah stayed with Lily in the living room, while Rachel and Richard went to the porch. The air between them was charged with unspoken tension. "I want to thank you for taking care of her," Rachel began, but her tone was far from grateful. "But now I'm here. Lily is well adjusted here. She has a room, good food, medical care. And what do you want in return?" The question caught Richard off guard. "What do you mean?" "Rich men don't do charity without expecting something, especially with orphan girls." Rachel's eyes shone with contained anger. "What do you really want from my sister?" "I want nothing more than to see her safe and happy." "Liar!" Rachel crossed her arms. "Nobody spends their own money on a stranger child without having ulterior motives." You're wrong about me. Am I? Then explain to me why a 50-year-old businessman, single, without children, suddenly decides to adopt a girl from the street. Richard took a deep breath, trying to control the anger that was growing in his chest. Because I saw a child suffering and I couldn't close my eyes. How convenient, Rachel gave a bitter laugh. You know what I think? I think you're going through some personal crisis and decided to play father. When you get tired of this phase, you'll return her to the street. That's unfair. Unfair is you thinking you can buy my sister with luxury and comfort. Rachel turned to look through the living room window where Lily was playing with Sarah. She may be fine now, but what about when you get tired? What about when you find a woman and decide to start a real family? What happens to Lily? Rachel's questions echoed in Richard's mind because, deep down, he knew they were valid. He really hadn't thought long-term when he brought Lily home. I'm not going to abandon her. Everyone says that at first. Rachel sighed. Look, I know you have good intentions, but Lily needs real stability, not temporary charity. And can you offer that? Working as a maid in New York City? I can offer true love, something that money can't buy. She's happy here. She was happy with Grandma too, until Grandma couldn't take care of her anymore. Rachel turned back to Richard. Children adapt, Mr. Sterling. Don't confuse adaptation with happiness. At that moment, Lily appeared on the porch holding Sarah's hand. Can I stay with both of you? She asked with the cruel innocence of children. Rachel can live here too. Rachel knelt in front of her sister. Lily, I came to get you so we can live together. Just the two of us. But I like living here. You'll like living with me too. We're going to have our own house, our own little corner. And Richard? Rachel looked at him with an expression that mixed resentment and something that looked like pity. Richard has his own life. He was very kind to take care of you, but now it's time for him to go back to his things. Tears began to roll down Lily's face. I don't want to leave, Richard. Sometimes we need to do things we don't want to, little one. That's part of growing up. Sarah spoke for the first time. Maybe we should let Lily get used to the idea, gradually. Rachel, do you have a place to stay in the city for a few days? I have a cousin here. I can stay with her. Then how about we spend a few days visiting Lily here and letting you two reconnect before making definitive decisions? It was a temporary solution, but Richard clung to it like a lifeline. Any extra time was welcome. Can I take Lily to lunch? Rachel asked. Just the two of us? Richard nodded, although every fibre of his being screamed not to let Lily leave the house. He watched through the windows as the two sisters walked down the street, Lily looking back several times, as if fearing that he might disappear. She's going to take her away, isn't she? He asked Sarah. Rachel has legal right, Mr. Sterling, and frankly, some of her concerns are valid. What concerns? Have you really thought about what it means to raise a child, about the changes it will require in your life, about the sacrifices? Richard looked at the house, which suddenly seemed too empty without Lily. I'm learning. Learning isn't enough when it comes to a child who has already experienced so much trauma. That afternoon, while waiting for Lily to return from lunch with Rachel, Richard walked through the rooms of his house, touching the objects that the girl had used, trying to memorize every sign of her presence. When they returned at nightfall, Lily was quieter than usual. Rachel seemed to have cried. Her eyes were red and swollen. Tomorrow I'm going to visit Grandma at the hospital, Rachel said. I want Lily to come with me. Of course. That night, after Rachel left, Lily sat on the bed and looked at Richard with a seriousness that didn't match her age. Rachel said that you're only taking care of me because you feel sorry for me. And what do you think about that? I think she's scared. Scared of what? That you love me more than her. The girl's insightful observation left Richard speechless. At 6 years old, Lily already understood complex emotional dynamics that many adults struggle to understand. Lily, it's not a competition. Love isn't a limited thing. Then why can't she stay here with us? It was a question for which Richard had no answer, at least not an answer that a 6-year-old could easily understand. On Monday morning, Richard faced a crisis he wasn't expecting. He arrived at his company's office to find his two main partners, Michael and Jennifer, waiting for him in the meeting room with stern expressions. "Richard, we need to talk," said Michael, a 40-year-old man with thick-rimmed glasses and an impeccable suit. Jennifer, also 40 years old, was an elegant woman with blonde hair tied in a perfect bun. Her blue eyes shone with a coldness that Richard knew well. It was the look she wore when she was about to make difficult business decisions. "About what?" Richard asked, sitting at the head of the mahogany table. "About your recent personal expenses," Jennifer replied, opening a folder. "And about how they are affecting your dedication to the company." Michael leaned forward. "Richard, in the last 15 days, you've missed 3 important meetings, cancelled 2 business trips, and have been using company resources for personal matters." "What resources?" "The company car to take a child to the doctor, the corporate card to buy clothes and toys, use of our legal advice for custody issues." Jennifer listed each item with surgical precision. "All this without consulting the board." Richard felt anger rising in his chest. "They're negligible amounts compared to the company's revenue." "It's not a matter of amounts," Michael said. "It's a matter of priorities. You're putting personal whims above professional commitments." "Whims?" Richard's voice rose an octave. "I'm taking care of an abandoned child." "A child who isn't your legal responsibility," Jennifer countered. "A child who is interfering with your ability to lead this company." "You're exaggerating." "Are we?" Michael opened his tablet and showed a spreadsheet. 3 important contracts lost in the last 2 weeks because you weren't present in the final negotiations. 2 clients complaining about your lack of attention to detail." Jennifer stood up and walked to the window overlooking the commercial center of Harmony Creek. "Richard, we understand that you're going through some kind of personal crisis, perhaps a delayed reaction to the death of your ex-wife a few years ago. Don't bring Mary into this, but we can't allow this crisis to destroy everything we've built together." She turned to face him. "This company employs 230 people in 3 cities. We have responsibilities that go beyond your humanitarian impulses." "Right. What are you proposing?" Michael and Jennifer exchanged a meaningful look before Michael answered. "We're proposing that you choose. Either you return to fully dedicating yourself to the company, or we take operational control." "You're threatening me." "We're giving you an option," Jennifer said coldly. "You have 49% of the shares. We have 51%. Mathematically, we can make decisions without you." The silence that followed was loaded with tension. Richard looked at the 2 partners he had considered friends for more than a decade, realizing that they were absolutely serious. "How long do I have to decide?" "1 week," Michael replied. "Until next Monday." When Richard arrived home that late afternoon, he found Rachel and Lily returning from the hospital. Rachel looked devastated, her eyes red from crying. Lily held her hand, trying to console her. "How was the visit?" he asked. "The doctor said that Grandma isn't going to wake up," Lily replied, with a sadness that broke Richard's heart. Rachel cried a lot. Rachel wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I need to make decisions about the treatment. About what to do. If you need help with medical costs." "No." Rachel's response was firm. "I already owe you too much. I'm not going to owe you more." That night, after Rachel went to her cousin's house, Lily was quieter than usual. She played distractedly with the toys that Richard had bought, but without her usual enthusiasm. "Lily, are you okay?" "Rachel said we're leaving tomorrow." The news hit Richard like lightning. "Tomorrow?" "She said she's already lost too much time, that she needs to go back to work in New York City, and that I'm going with her." "And do you want to go?" Lily stopped playing and looked at him with tearful eyes. "I don't want to leave you, But Rachel said that if I don't go, she's going to be very sad, and she's already sad because of Grandma. Richard knelt beside her. Lily, listen carefully to what I'm going to tell you. You're not responsible for the sadness of adults. Not mine, not Rachel's. But if I stay here, she's going to leave alone, and if I go with her, you're going to be alone. Lily's emotional wisdom continued to impress Richard. At 6 years old, she already understood dilemmas that many adults would take years to understand. Sometimes there's no perfect answer, little one. Sometimes people need to make difficult decisions. What decision would you make? The question caught Richard off guard. How to explain to a child that he himself was facing a similar dilemma, choosing between Lily and his company, between heart and reason? I would choose what makes me feel like I'm being the best version of myself. And what's the best version of you? Richard thought for a moment. Before meeting Lily, he defined himself by his professional successes, by the empire he had built. But in recent weeks he had discovered a version of himself that he didn't know, someone capable of unconditional love, of sacrifice, of purpose beyond profit. The best version of me is the one that takes care of those he loves. The next morning, Rachel arrived early with a larger suitcase and a determined expression. I came to get Lily. Our bus leaves at 2 in the afternoon. Rachel, can we talk a little more about this? There's nothing more to talk about. Lily is my sister, and I'm going to take care of her. But what about school? The medical care she may need, the stability. I'll manage. I always have. Lily appeared in the room, carrying a small backpack that Richard had bought for her. Her eyes were red, but she tried to smile. I'm going to miss my house, she said to Richard. This will always be your house, he replied, hugging her tight. At that moment, Rachel's phone rang. It was a long call, in a low voice. But Richard managed to hear fragments. Can't come back today. Family situation. Need a few more days. When she hung up, she seemed worried. Problems? Richard asked. My employer in New York City. She's not very happy with my prolonged absence. Is the job at risk? Rachel hesitated before answering. It might be. Rachel, you don't have to rush back. You can stay a few more days, sort things out calmly. And stay where? I can't abuse my cousin's hospitality indefinitely. You can stay here. Here? Rachel stared at him in surprise. The house is big. Lily already has a room. You can use the guest room until you decide what's best for you two. Why would you do that? Richard looked at Lily, who was watching the conversation attentively. Because Lily shouldn't be forced to choose between the people she loves, and because maybe you need time to discover that the most obvious solution isn't always the best. Rachel was silent for a long moment, clearly torn between pride and practical need. Just for a few days, she said finally, until I get organized. That afternoon, while Rachel settled into the guest room and Lily proudly showed her every corner of the house, Richard received a call that would change everything once again. It was Sarah, and her voice carried an urgency he had never heard before. Mr. Sterling, I need to see you immediately. I discovered something about Lily that completely changes the situation. What did you discover? I'd rather talk in person. Can I be there in an hour? When Sarah arrived, her face was pale, and she carried documents that seemed to have been photocopied in a hurry. Mr. Sterling, Rachel, I need you to sit down. What I'm about to tell you is going to shock you. Lily was playing in the garden, oblivious to the storm that was about to break over her life once again. Sarah sat at the table in the living room, spreading documents with the precision of someone who was about to reveal something monumental. Richard and Rachel positioned themselves in front of her, both tense with the promise of shocking revelations. Before I begin, I need you to understand that what I'm about to tell you completely changes our understanding about Lily's situation, Sarah said, adjusting her glasses nervously. Sarah, for God's sake, just talk, Rachel said impatiently. Well, during my routine investigation, I decided to examine Carol Smith's documents more closely, and I discovered something unexpected. Sarah paused, taking a deep breath. Lily is not Carol's biological granddaughter. The silence that followed was deafening. Rachel was the first to react. How is she not her granddaughter? Of course she is. She's the daughter of my younger sister, Joan. That's what everyone believed, Sarah said carefully. But the medical records show that Carol never had a daughter named Joan. Richard leaned forward. Then who is Lily's mother? That's the question. Carol registered Lily as her dependent 6 years ago, but without an official birth certificate. And when I questioned the registry office, I discovered that there is no birth record at all for Lily Smith. Rachel paled. That's impossible. I remember when Joan came home pregnant. I took care of her during the pregnancy. Rachel, how old were you when that happened? 16, 17 years old. I was a teenager. And where is Joan now? She died in childbirth. That's why Grandma took care of Lily. Sarah exchanged a meaningful look with Richard before continuing. Rachel, I spoke at length with Carol in the hospital during one of her moments of lucidity. She told me a very different story. What story? Carol said that Lily was left on her doorstep when she was a baby, along with a letter from a desperate woman asking her to take care of the child. Lies! Rachel stood up abruptly. Grandma is confused because of the illness. Rachel, sit down, Sarah said gently. There's more. Rachel sat down slowly, as if her knees had lost their strength. Carol kept the letter all these years. It's here. Sarah removed a yellowed envelope from her briefcase. And there's something else in the letter. Information about an inheritance. Richard approached. Inheritance. The woman who left Lily mentioned that the child's father had died, leaving a small inheritance in a local bank. She couldn't claim it because they weren't married, but she wanted Lily to have access to it when she was older. Rachel held her head in her hands. None of this makes sense. If Lily isn't my sister, then who is she? Why did Grandma invent that whole story about Joan? To protect you both, Sarah replied. Carol said that you were a troubled teenager at the time, involved with drugs and bad company. When Lily appeared, she saw an opportunity to give you a purpose, a responsibility. She made me believe that I had a baby sister to keep me away from drugs. And it worked, didn't it? You dedicated yourself to Lily, changed your life, became responsible. Rachel began to cry silently. So, Lily is nothing to me? Rachel, family isn't just about blood, Richard said softly. You took care of her, loved her, sacrificed yourself for her. That makes her your sister as much as any biological tie. But that changes everything legally, Sarah continued. If Lily has no official birth records, if we don't know who her biological parents are, she can be adopted, Richard completed, understanding the implications. Exactly. Technically, Lily is a child without a known family, available for adoption. At that moment, Lily appeared in the doorway of the room, drawn by the voices and Rachel's crying. Rachel, why are you crying? She asked, running to hug who she believed to be her sister. Rachel hugged her desperately, as if fearing that she might disappear. It's nothing, little one. I'm just sad because of Grandma. But Grandma is going to get better, isn't she? The look that Rachel exchanged with the adults in the room said it all. They still hadn't told Lily about Carol's real condition. Lily, come here, Richard said gently. We need to talk to you about some things. The girl sat on his lap, but her big eyes were attentive, as if she knew that more changes were coming. Little one, do you remember what it was like when you were a baby? Sarah asked. No, nobody remembers when they were a baby. And do you know why Rachel is your sister? Because Grandma said she is. What if we found out that maybe you're not blood sisters, but you're sisters of the heart? Would that change anything for you? Lily thought for a moment, with the seriousness that she always showed in the face of important questions. No, Rachel took care of me. That makes her my sister. And Richard, what is he to you? Richard is, Richard is like a dad. He saved me and gave me a home. Lily's words created an emotional silence in the room. Rachel continued to cry, but now her tears seemed to have changed in nature. Lily, if you could choose where to live, what would you choose? Sarah asked. I wanted everyone to live together. Rachel, Richard, Grandma when she gets better, and me. And if that wasn't possible? Lily looked at Rachel, then at Richard, clearly divided. I don't know. It's too hard to choose. That night after Lily went to sleep, the three adults gathered again in the living room. Rachel had calmed down, but still seemed shaken by the revelations. I need to process all of this, she said. My whole life has been based on a well-intentioned lie. It wasn't a lie, Richard said. It was love. Carol gave you purpose and gave a family to Lily. But now? What do we do now? Sarah spoke up. Legally, you both have equal rights to adopt Lily. Rachel, because you were the one who took care of her as family for years. Richard, because you're providing adequate care currently. Does that mean we're going to have to fight for her in court? Rachel asked. Not necessarily. You could file for a joint adoption. How so? Both become legal guardians of Lily. It's rare, but possible in special cases. Richard and Rachel looked at each other. The idea of raising Lily together had never been discussed, but suddenly it seemed like a real possibility. Would that work? Richard asked. It would depend on you two being willing to cooperate, to put Lily's well-being above any personal differences. What about the inheritance that was mentioned in the letter? Rachel asked. I'll investigate that. If it really exists, it can help in Lily's future, regardless of who adopts her. Mom, when Sarah left, Rachel and Richard were left alone in the room, processing everything they had discovered. Richard, can I ask you something? Sure. Why do you really want Lily? And don't tell me it's just out of pity. Richard thought carefully before answering. Because she reminded me of who I wanted to be when I was a child, before I became obsessed with success and money. She gave me back my humanity. And do you think you can give up your company for her? How do you know about that? I heard you talking on the phone earlier today with someone about difficult choices. Richard sighed. My partners gave me an ultimatum. Either I go back to fully dedicating myself to the company, or they take control. And what are you going to choose? I still don't know, but I know I can't abandon Lily. Rachel was silent for a long moment. You know what's ironic? I've spent my whole life believing that Lily was my responsibility, and now I find out that she can choose whoever she wants to be her family. She already chose. She wants both of us. That would be very strange, wouldn't it? It would be unconventional, but maybe Lily needs an unconventional family. That night, both went to sleep with more questions than answers, but with a growing certainty that Lily's future would depend on their ability to put love for the girl above their own fears and pride. The next morning, Richard woke up to the sound of raised voices coming from the kitchen. When he went downstairs, he found Rachel on the phone, clearly nervous, while Lily ate breakfast in silence. No, Mrs. Davis, I understand, but I need a few more days. What do you mean replaced? I've worked for you for 3 years. Rachel's voice rose an octave. Please, I just need to resolve an urgent family situation. Richard watched as Rachel hung up the phone forcefully, her eyes filling with tears of frustration and anger. I lost my job, she said, collapsing into a chair. 3 years of honest work, and she fires me over the phone because I needed to stay a few more days to take care of Lily. I'm so sorry, Richard said sincerely. Don't be. It's my fault for believing that employers care about family emergencies. Rachel wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Now I need to go back to New York City to get my things and try to find another job. And Lily? I don't know. Rachel looked at the girl, who was drawing on a piece of paper while eating. I can't take her to New York City without having a place to live or how to support her. You can stay here until you get organized. I Can't accept any more of your charity, Richard. I already owe too much. It's not charity. It's a practical solution to a problem that affects all of us. At that moment, Lily looked up from her drawing. Rachel, are you going away and leaving me? No, little one. I just need to sort some things out. All the big people always say that when they go away forever, Lily said with a cruel wisdom. Grandma also said she was just going to the hospital to sort something out. The observation hit Rachel like a stab. She knelt beside Lily's chair and held her small hands. Lily, I promise I'm not going to abandon you. Even if I need to travel, I'll always come back. You really promise? I promise. 2 hours later, while Rachel made calls trying to reorganize her professional life, Richard received an unexpected visit. It was George Thompson, the real owner of the diner where it had all begun. George was a 60-year-old man with completely white hair and a distinguished bearing. He wore simple but good-quality clothes and had the air of someone accustomed to being respected in the community. Mr. Sterling, I apologize for appearing without warning, but I needed to speak with you personally. About what? About what happened at my diner a few weeks ago, and about Earl. Richard vaguely remembered the manager who had humiliated Lily and then simply disappeared. What about him? After you confronted him, Earl was so ashamed that he resigned from all his jobs in the city. He's worked for me for 15 years in different establishments. And now he's going through hardship. His family, too. George paused. Mr. Sterling, I'm not defending his behavior. What he did to the girl was despicable. But he's the father of 3 young children, and his wife is pregnant. Richard felt a growing discomfort. What do you want from me? I want to understand your intentions. Earl told me that you not only humiliated him publicly, but you're also taking care of the girl he mistreated. The whole town is commenting. And what are they commenting? That a wealthy businessman is playing hero, that when you get tired of this phase, you're going to abandon the child. George leaned forward. Mr. Sterling, I've met many men like you throughout my life. Successful men who suddenly decide to do charity to ease some personal guilt. You don't know me. No, I don't know you. That's why I'm here. I want to know. George crossed his arms. This girl has suffered enough abandonment. If you're not absolutely sure that you can be a father to her, it's better to stop now. And who decides that? You. Her well-being decides it. And experience has taught me that rich men solve problems with money, not with real dedication. At that moment, Lily appeared in the room, running to show her drawing to Richard. Look what I made. It's our family at the house. The drawing showed 3 figures, a tall man, a woman, and a small girl, all holding hands in front of a yellow house. Above them she had drawn a smiling sun. It's beautiful, little one, Richard said, hugging her. George watched the interaction attentively. May I ask the girl a question? Richard nodded. Lily, are you happy living here? I am. Richard is good to me. And do you know that he's very busy with work, that he may not have much time to play with you? He always makes time. And when he's working, I stay quiet so I don't bother him. George turned to Richard. And when she gets sick? When she has nightmares? When she needs help with homework? I take care of her. Even if it means missing important meetings, cancel business trips? Yes. Even if your partners decide to take you out of the company? The question hit Richard hard. How did George know about his problems with Michael and Jennifer? Harmony Creek is a small town, Mr. Sterling. News travels fast, especially about local businessmen facing internal crises. Lily looked at Richard with concern. Are you going to lose your job because of me? No, little one. Nothing like that is going to happen. But even as he said it, Richard knew he was lying. Michael and Jennifer's ultimatum would expire in 4 days, and he still hadn't made a decision. George stood up. Mr. Sterling, I'm going to make you a proposal. What proposal? If you're really committed to this girl, if you're really willing to sacrifice your company for her, I have a job offer. Job? I manage 7 commercial establishments in Harmony Creek and the surrounding area. I need someone experienced to coordinate operations. It doesn't pay what you're used to earning, but it pays enough to support a family with dignity. Richard was surprised by the offer. Why would you do that? Because I believe in second chances. And because if you're really willing to give up a multi-million-dollar company for an orphaned child, then maybe I misjudged your intentions. I need to think. Of course. But don't take too long. Decide soon whether you want to be a businessman or a father. Because trying to be both, you may end up failing at both. After George left, Richard stood on the porch watching Lily play in the garden. She was teaching mathematics to her dolls, using pebbles as if they were numbers. 8 + 4 is 12, she said to a doll. It's easy, you just need to pay attention. Rachel joined him on the porch. She really is special, isn't she? She is, very special. Richard, I need to tell you something. I got a job in a town near New York City. Better salary, but I'd have to start next week. What about Lily? That's the problem. I can't take her with me immediately. I'd need a few weeks to get organized, find daycare, a suitable apartment. She can stay here until you get organized. Would you do that? Even knowing that I might decide to take her definitively? Richard looked at Lily, who was now trying to teach a song to a bird that had landed near her. Rachel, can I ask you a question? Sure. Do you love Lily? Of course I love her. She's my family. Then why are you willing to tear her away from a place where she's happy and safe? Rachel was silent for a long moment. Because I'm afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid that if I let her stay, I'll lose her forever. Afraid that she'll become so attached to you that she won't need me anymore. Rachel, children aren't objects that are owned. They're people who are loved. Easy to say when you have money and stability. Stability, Richard laughed bitterly. I can lose my company in 4 days. My partners want to remove me from control, and I'm considering accepting a job that pays 10 times less than what I earn today. Why would you do that? For her. Richard pointed to Lily, who was now sitting under a tree, reading a children's book to her dolls. Because for the first time in my life, I found something more important than financial success. That night, the 3 had dinner together as an unlikely family. Lily told about her day, about the birds she had seen, about the sums she had taught the dolls. It was a simple domestic scene, but full of emotion. When Lily went to sleep, she kissed both on the forehead. Good night, Rachel. Good night, Daddy Richard. The word Daddy echoed in the room like a revelation. It was the first time Lily had called Richard that. She called you Daddy, Rachel whispered. I heard. How do you feel? Richard thought for a moment. Complete. For the first time in my life, I feel complete. It was a feeling he had never experienced, not even in his greatest business successes. And at that moment, he knew exactly what choice he would make when Monday arrived. On Friday morning, Sarah arrived at Richard's house with a somber expression and a briefcase even bulkier than the previous times. There was something in her face that indicated difficult news. I need to talk to you about several urgent issues, she said, entering the room where Richard and Rachel were waiting for her. Lily was at school. She had finally agreed to attend classes after Richard promised to pick her up every day. What happened? Asked Rachel, sensing the seriousness in Sarah's tone. First, about Carol. The doctors called me last night. Her condition has deteriorated significantly. They think she has few days. Rachel covered her face with her hands. Even knowing that this moment would come, the news still devastated her. Second, Sarah continued, I investigated the inheritance mentioned in the letter. It's real. There's a savings account at Bank of America in the name of John Carter, with instructions to be transferred to his daughter when she turns 18. How much? Richard asked. It's not a fortune, but it's substantial for a child from a humble background. Approximately $40,000, accumulated with interest over 6 years. And how do we access that? That's the problem. We need to prove that Lily is John Carter's daughter, and for that we need a DNA test. Rachel raised her head. DNA of whom? The man is dead. Of his relatives. I discovered that John Carter had a brother in Asheville. Ronald managed to locate him. Ronald? Richard asked. The private investigator you hired to find information about Lily's origin. Richard turned red. How did you know about that? Because Ronald is my cousin, and because he told me that you hired him to discreetly investigate Lily's situation. Sarah turned to Rachel. He was trying to ensure that she had adequate documentation for school. You investigated me? Rachel asked, turning to Richard with indignation. It wasn't exactly like that. It was exactly like that. You hired an investigator to rummage through our life. Rachel, I just wanted to make sure that Lily was safe. Safe from what? From me? Sarah interjected. Rachel, calm down. Richard was trying to resolve the issue of Lily's documents. Technically, she can't even be enrolled in school without an official birth certificate. And you knew that and didn't tell me? Rachel turned again to Richard. I was going to tell you. I was waiting for the right moment. A right moment? When? After you decided if I was good enough to take care of my own... of Lily? That's not it. It's exactly that. Rachel stood up, pacing nervously around the room. First you investigate me without telling me. Then you offer help pretending it's kindness when it's actually guilt. And now I find out that you have a private investigator after our family. At that moment, Richard's phone rang. It was Ronald. Richard, I need to talk to you urgently. I discovered something about Lily that's going to shock you. Can't you talk on the phone? I'd rather talk in person. Can I be there in half an hour? You can. When Richard hung up, Rachel stared at him with total distrust. More secrets? Ronald said he discovered something important about Lily. There's always something new, isn't there? Always some more convenient mystery that appears at the right time. Sarah tried to calm the situation. Rachel, I know you're upset, but we need to focus on what's best for Lily. What's best for Lily is not to live amid lies and manipulations. No one is lying to her, Richard said. No? Then does she know that you investigated me? Does she know that you hired a detective? Does she know that your partners want to take you out of the company? How did you know about my partners? Because last night I heard you talking on the phone with someone about losing control of the company. And because I'm not an idiot, Richard, I realize when people hide things from me. Before Richard could answer, Ronald arrived. He was a 35-year-old man, thin and nervous, carrying a worn leather briefcase. Sorry to interrupt, but what I discovered can't wait, he said, clearly agitated. What did you discover? Sarah asked. Ronald opened the briefcase and took out some photographs. I managed to contact John Carter's brother. He showed me old family photos. And I found out who Lily's mother is. The silence in the room was absolute. Everyone leaned in to see the photographs that Ronald was spreading on the table. This here, he said, pointing to an old photo, is John Carter at 25 years old. And this woman next to him? The photo showed a young couple smiling at the camera. The man was tall and dark-haired with gentle eyes. The woman was blonde, elegant, with a smile that seemed familiar. Do you recognize her? Ronald asked. Richard approached the photo, studying the woman's face. There was something familiar about her, but he couldn't identify what. Who is she? Rachel asked. Jennifer Allen. At the time, Jennifer Simmons. Jennifer? Richard took the photo, examining it more closely. It can't be. Can't be what? Sarah asked. Jennifer is my partner in the company. She's worked with me for 15 years. The same Jennifer who wants to remove you from the presidency? Rachel asked sarcastically. According to John Carter's brother, Ronald continued, Jennifer and he dated for 2 years. She got pregnant, but when John Carter died in a motorcycle accident, she disappeared from the town. Nobody ever heard from her again. That's impossible, Richard murmured. Jennifer never had children. She always said she didn't want children. Apparently, she had one, and gave it up for informal adoption through intermediaries. Rachel sat heavily in a chair. So Lily's biological mother is the woman who wants to destroy you professionally. It seems so. And does she know? Sarah asked. I don't believe she knows, Ronald replied. From what John Carter's brother told me, Jennifer gave the child away at the hospital through a nurse. She never had direct contact with who received the baby. So Jennifer doesn't know that Lily is her daughter, Richard said, trying to process the information. And Lily doesn't know that the woman who wants to destroy the life of the man she considers her father is her biological mother, Rachel completed. At that moment they heard the sound of the key in the lock. Lily had returned from school earlier than expected. Hi everyone. The teacher said I can come home early today because I behaved well in math class, she shouted from the hallway. Everyone in the room looked at each other with panic. Documents and photographs were scattered on the table, revealing secrets that could destroy the small stability that Lily had managed to build. Quick, put everything away, Sarah whispered. But it was too late. Lily entered the room running, stopped suddenly when she saw all the adults with guilty expressions, and then her gaze fixed on the photographs on the table. Why do you have pictures of people I don't know? She asked, approaching the table. Lily, little one, they're just boring adult documents, Richard tried to explain, but she'd already seen the photo of John Carter and Jennifer. Her eyes widened. This man looks like me, she said, pointing to John Carter in the photograph. He does? Rachel asked nervously. He does. He has my eyes. Lily picked up the photo and studied it carefully. And this lady, where have I seen this lady? You don't know her, little one, Richard said quickly. I do. She was at your company one day when you took me there. Lily looked at Richard in confusion. Why do you have a picture of her? Richard felt the world collapsing around him. Not only was Jennifer Lily's biological mother, but the girl had already seen her, had already established an unconscious connection. Lily, come here, he said, kneeling in front of her. We need to talk about some very important things. About what? About your real family. It was the conversation he most feared having, but he knew he could no longer postpone it. The truth about Lily was about to explode in a way that would change the lives of everyone involved forever. Richard held Lily's small hands, trying to find words that could explain such a complex situation to a 6-year-old. Around him, Rachel, Sarah, and Ronald waited in tense silence. Lily, do you remember when we found out that Grandma Carol wasn't your blood grandmother? He began carefully. I remember, but she's still my heart grandma. Exactly. Well, we found out who your blood parents are. Lily's eyes widened. My real parents? Yes. Your dad's name was John Carter, he said, showing the photo. He died before you were born, but he left some money saved for you. He's handsome, Lily said, touching the photo delicately. And he really looks like me? Very much. You have his eyes. And my mom? Where's my mom? Richard took a deep breath. Your mom is alive, and you already know her. I know her. It's the lady in the photo, Jennifer. Lily studied the image again. The lady from your work. The one who didn't smile at me. Lily's observation hit Richard like a stab. She had perceived Jennifer's coldness in the only encounter they had. She didn't know who you were that day. And now she knows. Not yet. Why not? It was a question impossible to answer. How to explain to a child that her biological mother had abandoned her and then spent years trying to destroy the man who saved her? Sometimes adults do things they can't explain, little one. Your mum, she was very young when you were born, and she was scared. Scared of me? Scared of not knowing how to take care of you, so she asked other people to take care, hoping that you would have a better life. Lily was quiet for a long moment, processing the information. So she didn't want me. It's not that she didn't want you, it's that she didn't know how to want you. And now? Now we need to talk to her. Rachel spoke for the first time. Richard, you can't just go to your partner and say that the daughter she abandoned is living in your house. Why not? Because it's going to be a shock for everyone, for Jennifer, for Lily. And what's the alternative? Hide the truth forever? At that moment, Richard's phone rang. It was Michael. "Richard, where are you? Jennifer and I have been waiting for you at the office for an hour." "For what?" "For the final meeting about your future in the company. Did you forget? Today is the deadline for the ultimatum." Richard had completely forgotten. The revelation about Jennifer had erased everything from his mind. "I'm heading there now. You have 15 minutes. After that, we're going to make decisions without you." When he hung up, everyone was looking at him expectantly. "I need to go to the office. Today is the day my partners decide my future in the company." "And are you going to tell Jennifer about Lily?" Sarah asked. "I don't know. I don't know how to do that." "Can I go with you?" Lily asked suddenly. "What?" "Can I go with you? I want to see my mom again." "Lily, it's not a good idea." "Why not?" "She's my mom. I have a right to see her." Rachel knelt beside Lily. "Little one, sometimes things need to be done slowly. Richard needs to talk to her first." "But I can wait in the car. I just want to see her." Richard looked at his watch. He had 10 minutes to get to the office, make the most important decision of his professional life, and possibly reveal a secret that would change everything for Jennifer. "All right, you can come, but stay in the car with Rachel." "Am I going too?" "If you want. It might be important to have you around." 20 minutes later, Richard entered his company's meeting room with his heart racing. Michael and Jennifer were sitting on one side of the table with serious expressions and a pile of documents in front of them. "You arrived just in time," Jennifer said coldly. "We were about to proceed without you." "Sorry for the delay. I had a family emergency." "Family emergency?" Michael laughed humorlessly. "Richard, you don't have a family. You just have this obsession with a child who isn't even yours." "About that," Richard began, but Jennifer interrupted him. "About that, we've talked enough. It's time for you to decide, company or charity." "It's not charity. It's love." "Love?" Jennifer stood up, walking to the window. "Richard, you're going through a classic midlife crisis. In a few months, when the novelty wears off, you're going to get tired of this daddy game." "You're wrong." "Am I? Then explain to me why you never wanted to have children before, why you never got married, why you dedicated your whole life to this company." "Because I didn't know what I was missing." Jennifer returned to the table and sat down. "Richard, I'm going to be clear. Michael and I have already made our decision. If you don't return to fully dedicating yourself to the company, we're going to take control and you can leave. And if I choose to leave, then you leave with nothing. We sell your shares at the minimum value stipulated in the contract. Would you do that?" "We would," Michael said. "This company is our life, Richard. We're not going to let you destroy it for a whim." Richard looked at the two partners he had considered friends for 15 years. Suddenly they seemed like strangers to him. "Jennifer, can I ask you a personal question?" "What question?" "Have you ever regretted a decision you made in the past?" "What kind of question is that?" "The kind that can change everything between us." Jennifer frowned. "Richard, what are you talking about?" "About a decision you made 6 years ago, a decision that involved a child." Jennifer's face paled slightly. "How do you—" "Jennifer, you had a child. With John Carter." The silence in the room was absolute. Michael looked from Richard to Jennifer, clearly confused. "What are you talking about?" he asked. Jennifer stood up slowly, her hands trembling. "How did you find out about that?" "Because the child you abandoned is the same one I'm taking care of." "That's impossible." "Lily is your daughter, Jennifer." The revelation hit Jennifer like a tsunami. She leaned on the table, her legs seeming to have lost their strength. The girl you brought here, she's your daughter, that you gave up for adoption, and that ended up on the streets when the woman who took care of her got sick." Tears began to roll down Jennifer's face. "My God, what have I done? Jennifer, she's here. She's in the parking lot. Do you want to see her? I can't. Not after what I did. You can. She wants to meet her mom. Michael stood up, completely lost. Can someone explain to me what's going on here? I'm discovering, Jennifer said with a broken voice, that I've spent the last months trying to destroy the man who saved my daughter. At that moment, through the window of the room, they saw Rachel and Lily in the parking lot. The girl was looking up, trying to see through the mirrored windows of the building. She's looking for me, Richard said. She's beautiful, Jennifer whispered. She grew up and became beautiful. Do you want to go down to meet her properly? I'm afraid. Of what? That she hates me, that she sees me as the mother who abandoned her. Jennifer, children aren't born knowing how to hate. They need to learn that. And Lily has learned to love, not to hate. 5 minutes later in the parking lot, one of the most emotional scenes of Lily's life was about to happen. Jennifer walked slowly towards the car, her hands trembling, while Richard accompanied her. When Lily saw her, she jumped out of the car and ran towards them. "It's her! It's my mom!" she shouted. Jennifer knelt down as Lily approached, tears running freely down her face. "Hi," Lily said simply. "I'm Lily. I'm your daughter." "I know," Jennifer whispered, "and I'm your mum, and I'm so sorry, so very sorry for not taking care of you." "It's okay," Lily said, hugging Jennifer. "Richard took care of me, and now the three of us can be a family." The innocence of Lily's suggestion made both Richard and Jennifer cry even more. But it was a suggestion that opened possibilities that none of them had considered before. The hug between Jennifer and Lily lasted long minutes, watched by Richard, Rachel, and even Michael, who had come down to understand what was happening. When they finally separated, Jennifer held Lily's face in her hands, studying every feature with a mixture of love and regret. "You have your father's eyes," she said with a choked voice, "and the most beautiful smile I've ever seen." "Richard told me that my dad died before I was born," Lily said. "Were you sad?" "Very sad. So sad that I didn't know how to take care of you alone." "But now you know." Lily's simple and direct question left Jennifer speechless. How to explain to a 6-year-old that she had spent years running away from responsibility, building a career and a life that deliberately excluded any possibility of motherhood. I'd like to learn," she replied finally. "I can teach you. I know a lot of things now. I know how to count to 1,000. I know how to read stories, and I know how to do difficult sums in my head." Rachel approached the group, watching the interaction with a mixture of complex emotions. "Lily, how about we let the adults talk a little?" "But I want to stay with my mom," Lily protested. "You can stay," Jennifer said quickly. "If you want, of course." Michael cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable with the whole emotional situation. "Sorry to interrupt, but we still have business matters to resolve." "Michael, business matters can wait," Richard said. "No, they can't. We have responsibilities to our employees, to our clients." "Michael, shut up," Jennifer said abruptly, surprising everyone. "For the first time in 6 years, I'm meeting my daughter. The rest can wait." "Jennifer, you're being emotional. In a few hours, when the euphoria passes, you'll realize that this situation complicates everything." "Complicates what?" "Your career, your plans, your organized life. You always said you didn't want children interfering with your goals." Jennifer stood up, still holding Lily's hand. "Michael, I said that because I was scared. Scared of facing what I had done, scared of not being good enough to be a mother. And now suddenly you are. Now I want to try to be." Richard watched Jennifer's transformation with fascination. The cold and calculating woman he had known for 15 years was being replaced by someone vulnerable and human. "Jennifer," he said, "if you really want to be part of Lily's life, we need to talk about how that would work." "What do you mean?" "Lily is established, has a routine, people she loves. Any changes need to be gradual." "Are you saying I can't take my daughter home?" "I'm saying that home for Lily now is my home, And Rachel is also part of her family. Rachel spoke up. Richard, maybe it's better if we talk about this in private. No, Lily said firmly. I want to hear everything. It's about me, so I can listen. The four adults looked at each other, realizing that the 6-year-old girl was right. It was about her, and she had a right to participate in the decisions about her future. Lily, Jennifer said, kneeling again to get to her level, what would you like to happen? I wanted everyone to live in the same house. You, Richard, Rachel, and me. That would be complicated, Rachel said. Why? The house is big. There are rooms for everyone. Because adults sometimes have difficulty sharing spaces, Richard explained. But you're not normal adults, Lily said, with the relentless logic of children. You love me. People who love the same person can live together. Jennifer laughed through her tears. She's very smart. She's the smartest thing I've ever known, Richard agreed. So can we try? Lily asked hopefully. Before anyone could answer, Sarah appeared in the parking lot, running towards the group with a desperate expression. Richard, Rachel, I need to talk to you urgently. What happened? Richard asked. Carol, the hospital called. She's awake and asking to see Lily. Grandma woke up? Lily shouted, jumping for joy. Is she better? Sarah hesitated before answering. She's conscious, but the doctors say it may be temporary. She wants to say goodbye to you. The word goodbye fell over the group like a cold shadow. Lily stopped jumping and looked at the adults in confusion. Say goodbye, why? Is she going on a trip? Lily, Rachel said gently, Grandma is very sick. She may go away forever. Like my dad, John Carter. Like him. Lily was quiet for a moment, processing the information. Then I need to go talk to her now. Of course, little one, we'll all go. All? You, me, Rachel, and Jennifer, if she wants, Richard said. Jennifer looked at him in surprise. You want me to go? Lily wants you to go. And maybe it's important for Carol to meet Lily's biological mother. 30 minutes later, the unusual group entered the city hospital. Carol was awake, but visibly frail, connected to several machines. When she saw Lily, her eyes filled with tears. My girl, she whispered. My smart girl. Lily ran to the bed and held Carol's hand. Grandma, you woke up. I knew you were going to get better. I'm not going to get better, little one, but I'm happy to see you one last time. Don't talk like that. You're going to get better, and you're going to come home. Carol looked at Richard and Rachel, then at Jennifer, who remained in the back of the room. Are you Jennifer? She asked. I am, Jennifer replied, approaching the bed. How did you know? From her eyes. Lily has your eyes. Carol smiled weakly. Did you come to get your daughter? I don't know. It's complicated. It's not complicated, Carol said. Love isn't complicated. Fear is what complicates love. Do you forgive me for abandoning her? I'm not the one who needs to forgive you. It's her, and it seems like she already has. Lily, who was listening to everything, turned to Jennifer. I forgive you. Grandma always said that forgiving makes us feel lighter. Carol squeezed Lily's hand. My wise girl, you're going to have a beautiful life. With you too, Grandma. No, little one. I'm going to another place, but I'll always be taking care of you from there. Carol touched Lily's heart. And you're going to have many people to love you. Who? Richard, who saved you. Rachel, who raised you as a sister. Jennifer, who gave you life. And you're going to choose how you want them to be part of your family. Can I really choose? You can, because family is who we choose to love. Carol looked at the three adults. Are you three going to take good care of her? We will, they promised in unison. Then I can go in peace. Carol closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them again and looked directly at Lily. Little one, when I'm gone, are you going to be sad? I will. And after the sadness? I don't know. After the sadness comes longing, and after the longing comes gratitude. Gratitude for having met me, for having been loved, for having people who continue to love you. And after gratitude? After gratitude comes happiness, a new happiness, built on top of all the love you received. Lily nodded solemnly, as if she perfectly understood the life lesson she was receiving. Grandma, can I tell you a secret? You can. I'm already happy. Even with you sick, I'm happy because I have 3 people who love me. 3 wonderful people, Carol agreed, looking at Richard, Rachel, and Jennifer. You are a very lucky girl. Carol fell asleep again a few minutes later, and the doctor explained that she probably wouldn't wake up again. The 4 left the hospital in silence, each processing the farewell they had just witnessed. In the parking lot, Lily broke the silence. Now, are we going home? Which home? Jennifer asked. Our home, the home where we all live together. And at that moment, looking at that extraordinary girl who had changed all their lives, the 3 adults realized that perhaps the most unlikely solution was also the most right one. 3 days after the last encounter with Carol, who had passed away silently during her sleep, Richard's house had transformed into something he had never imagined. A home full of life, voices, and intense emotions. Jennifer had requested an indefinite leave of absence from the company, leaving Michael temporarily in control, an irony that didn't go unnoticed by anyone. She slept in the guest room, while Rachel occupied another room, and Lily circulated between all the spaces as if she were the owner of the house. Richard, are you sure this can work? Rachel asked on Friday morning while they were preparing breakfast together. Jennifer had taken Lily to buy mourning clothes appropriate for Carol's funeral. Honestly, I have no idea, he replied, scrambling eggs in the pan. But Lily seems happy, and that's what matters. What about the company? Michael isn't going to accept this situation forever. Michael can do whatever he wants. I've made my decision. What decision? I'm going to accept George's proposal, work managing his establishments. Rachel stopped cutting fruit and stared at him. You're going to give up everything you've built? I'm going to give up everything I thought I wanted to stay with what I really need. What if you regret it? What if Jennifer decides to take Lily away? Then we'll face that when it happens. For now, we're trying to build something that works for everyone. At that moment, Jennifer and Lily returned from shopping, carrying bags and chatting excitedly. Jennifer's transformation was remarkable. She had exchanged executive suits for casual clothes, and there was a lightness in her movements that Richard had never seen in 15 years of partnership. We bought a beautiful black dress for Lily, Jennifer announced, and she taught me how to do mental calculations in the car. Jennifer is very smart, Lily said proudly. She learned quickly. Not as fast as you, Jennifer replied, kissing the top of her daughter's head. You're a math genius. Richard watched the interaction between mother and daughter with a mixture of joy and apprehension. The bond between them was strengthening rapidly, which was wonderful, but also increased the possibility of Jennifer deciding to rebuild her life only with Lily. Guys, Lily said suddenly, I need to tell you something important. The 3 adults gathered around the kitchen table, paying full attention to the girl. It's about Grandma, she continued. I dreamed about her yesterday. What kind of dream? Rachel asked gently. She said she was fine, that she didn't feel any more pain, and she said that I should stop being sad. Are you sad? Jennifer asked. A little bit, but I'm also happy. How can you be sad and happy at the same time? Because I can miss Grandma and be happy to have you 3. Grandma said that the heart has room for many feelings at the same time. Lily's wisdom continued to impress the adults. At 6 years old, she understood emotional complexities that many adults took decades to process. Lily, Richard said, there's something we need to decide together. What? How we're going to organize our family. If we're all going to continue living here, we need to establish some rules. What kind of rules? Rules about responsibilities, about important decisions, about how to take care of you. Jennifer spoke up. Lily, would you like me to be your mum officially, through adoption? You're already my mum. You had me in your belly. But I didn't take care of you. Rachel and Richard did. Then they're my parents too. Lily, Rachel said carefully, do you understand that it's not normal for a child to have three parents? Normal is boring, Lily replied simply. I prefer to be special. At that moment the doorbell rang. It was Sarah arriving for a follow-up visit that she had scheduled to discuss Lily's legal situation. How are things going here? She asked, observing the unusual domestic scene. Complicated, but working, Richard replied. Sarah, were you able to find out anything more about the inheritance? Jennifer asked. I did, and there's good news. With the DNA test confirming that Lily is John Carter's daughter, she's entitled not only to the savings account, but also to a small house he left in Asheville. A house? Lily asked. A small house, but in good condition. Your father left it specifically for any child he might have. Can I go see it? We can all go see it, Sarah said. In fact, I think it would be good for you to visit Asheville. John Carter's brother, your Uncle Thomas, would love to meet Lily. I have an uncle? Lily's eyes lit up. You do. And he has two daughters, your cousins. More family, Lily exclaimed. Our family is getting gigantic, Jennifer laughed. Gigantic and complicated. But full of love, Rachel added. A week later, the group made the trip to Asheville. John Carter's house was simple but charming, with 2 bedrooms, a small living room and a backyard with fruit trees. Thomas Carter received them with tears in his eyes. She's just like John, he said, hugging Lily. The same smile, the same curious eyes. Lily's cousins, Mary and Anna, aged 8 and 10, welcomed her immediately, teaching her games and showing her old photos of the father she never knew. Did Daddy John like math too? Lily asked, looking at a photo where John Carter appeared with accounting books. He loved it, Thomas replied. He always said that numbers didn't lie, that they were honest. Just like me, Lily exclaimed. During lunch at Thomas's house, an important conversation took place between the adults while the children played in the backyard. Jennifer, Thomas said, can I ask you a personal question? Sure. Why did you give Lily up for adoption? John would have been very happy to be a father. Jennifer lowered her eyes. Because I was 18, I was scared, and I believed that I couldn't raise a child alone. And now? Now I've discovered that I don't need to raise her alone. I have help. From Richard and Rachel, from them, and from this whole huge family that Lily has managed to build around her. Thomas smiled. John would be proud. He always said that family was the most important thing in life. Thomas, Richard said, can I ask if you would like to be part of Lily's life regularly? I would love to. And the girls too. They're already planning to teach Lily how to make the sweets their grandmother used to make. Then how about we visit Asheville once a month? Lily can get to know this part of the family better. It would be perfect. On the way back to Harmony Creek, Lily was radiant, telling about everything she had learned from her cousins and her uncle. Did you know that Daddy John had a horse, and that he built his house with his own hands? We didn't know, Jennifer said. What else did you find out? That he really wanted to have children. Uncle Thomas said that he always talked about teaching mathematics to his children. He would have loved you very much, Rachel said. I know, but he loves me from heaven too, just like Grandma Carol. That night, at Richard's house, the 4 gathered in the living room for a decisive conversation. Guys, Richard said, I think it's time for us to formalize our situation. How so? Jennifer asked. Joint adoption. We 3 become legally responsible for Lily. Is that possible? Rachel asked. Sarah said yes, in special cases, and our case is definitely special. What about the company? Jennifer asked. Michael took control. He bought my shares at the minimum value, as you had threatened. Richard, I'm so sorry. Don't be. It was the best thing that happened to me. George offered me a job that gives me time to be a real father. And you're happy? Happier than I've ever been. Lily, who had pretended to be sleeping on the sofa to listen to the conversation, sat up suddenly. So now we're officially a family. If you want, Jennifer said, I really want to, but can I make a request? Sure. When you sign the papers, I want to be there, because it's about me, so I can participate. Of course you can, Richard said, hugging her. And can I choose the last names I want to have? You can. Then I want to be Lily Smith Carter Sterling Allen. That's too many names for just one person, Rachel laughed. It's because I'm a person with a lot of family, Lily replied proudly. And at that moment, looking at that extraordinary girl surrounded by 3 adults who had learned to love in ways they never imagined possible, all knew that they had found something rare and precious, a family built not by chance or tradition, but by choice, love, and the determination of a child who refused to accept that she couldn't have everything she needed to be happy. 6 months after the official joint adoption, the routine of the Smith-Carter Sterling Allen family had found its own unique rhythm. It was a Tuesday morning when Lily, now 7 years old, made an announcement that would once again change the dynamics of everyone. I want to say something important at breakfast, she said, coming down the stairs with her school backpack perfectly organized. Richard, who now worked flexible hours for George, was making pancakes. Jennifer read reports from a pedagogy course she had started to take, a surprising decision that made her rethink her entire career. Rachel finished packing Lily's lunch for school. What announcement? Rachel asked, sitting at the table. I want you 3 to get married. The silence that followed was so deep that even the sound of the frying pan seemed deafening. Richard almost dropped the spatula, Jennifer choked on her coffee, and Rachel's mouth dropped open. What do you mean, little one? Richard asked when he regained his composure. Marry all together. That way our family is really complete. Lily, Jennifer said carefully, people don't get married in groups. And besides, marriage is between people who love each other in a romantic way. Don't you love each other? We love each other as family, Rachel explained. It's different. Why? You take care of each other, worry about each other, argue sometimes, but always make up. It sounds like marriage to me. Lily's childish logic was, as always, disconcertingly simple and direct. Besides, she continued, I saw on TV that real families have married parents. I want our family to be real too. Our family is already real, Richard said, sitting next to her. But people at school ask why I have 3 parents who aren't married. I don't know what to answer. Jennifer leaned forward. What have you been answering? That you're my heart parents, but that you're still learning to be a family. And does that bother you? Rachel asked. It doesn't bother me, but I wish I could say that you chose each other forever, just like you chose to love me forever. The emotional depth of Lily's observation left the 3 adults speechless. As always, she had touched on the core of issues that they themselves struggled to understand. Lily, Jennifer said, even if we wanted to do that, it would be very complicated. The laws don't allow 3 people to get married. Then change the laws. It's not that simple. Why do adults always say that things aren't simple? To me, you love each other, take care of me, live together, and want to stay together forever. That seems simple. At that moment, Richard's phone rang. It was George, with unexpected news. Richard, I need to talk to you urgently. Can you come to the office earlier today? Did something happen? Michael showed up here yesterday. He wants to talk to you. Michael? For what? I'd rather he explain it himself. Can you be here in an hour? After the phone call, Richard explained the situation to the others. Lily immediately offered to accompany him. Can I go? I want to meet the man who bought your company. Lily, it's not a good idea. Please, I promise to be quiet. Jennifer spoke up. Actually, it might be interesting. Lily has the right to know the people who were part of Richard's life. An hour later, at George's office, a tense meeting was about to take place. Michael waited nervously, shuffling papers he had brought in a folder. Richard, George said, Michael has a proposal for you. What kind of proposal? Michael stood up, clearly uncomfortable. Richard, I'll be direct. The company is in trouble. What kind of trouble? Serious financial problems. Without your experience and your connections, we've lost several important clients. We've been in the red for 3 months. So? And I'd like you to come back. Richard was surprised. Come back as what? As the majority partner. I'm willing to give back your shares at full value, plus a bonus for how I treated you. Why would you do that? Because I've discovered that ego doesn't pay the bills, and because the company we built together is dying without you. Lily, who had been quiet until then, spoke up. Uncle Michael, can I ask you a question? Michael looked at the girl in surprise. Sure. Why were you so mean to Richard? The direct question caught Michael off guard. I wasn't mean. I was just protecting the company. But the company was his too, and you took it from him. Isn't that being mean? Lily, it's complicated. Adults always say it's complicated when they do wrong things, she said with the brutal honesty of children. Michael looked at Richard. Does she always talk like that? Always. She's very direct. Uncle Michael, Lily continued, if Richard goes back to your company, will he have less time to be with me? Well, the job requires dedication. Then I don't want him to go back. Lily, Richard said, that's a decision I need to think carefully about. You don't need to think. You're happier working with George. You come home earlier, you're not stressed, and you have time to help me with math. George laughed. This girl is a better advisor than any business consultant. Michael, Richard said, your proposal is generous, but I'm going to decline. Why? Because I've learned that success isn't measured only by money or power. It's measured by how much love you can build around you. And you believe you've built love. Richard looked at Lily, who smiled proudly beside him. I built a family. I built purpose. I built happiness. And that's worth more than the company? It's worth infinitely more, Michael sighed. I understand, and I respect your decision. Uncle Michael, Lily said suddenly, do you have a family? I have an ex-wife and 2 children who barely talk to me. Why do they barely talk to you? Because I spent my whole life working, neglecting them. So you understand why Richard doesn't want to go back. I understand now. It's never too late to change, said Lily with the wisdom she always demonstrated. Richard changed and is much happier. That afternoon back home, Lily was radiant. Richard, I'm proud of you. Why? Because you chose our family over money. It was an easy choice. And what about my wedding idea? Richard laughed. We're still thinking about it. Thinking too much is a waste of time. Grandma Carol always said that when you know something is right, you don't need to think about it too much. That night, after Lily fell asleep, the 3 adults gathered on the porch for a serious conversation. She's right about a lot of things, said Jennifer. About what specifically? Asked Rachel. About us choosing each other, about wanting to stay together forever, about our family being different but working. Jennifer, are you suggesting we should seriously consider her idea? I'm suggesting that maybe we should stop trying to fit our family into conventional models and simply accept that we are unique. Richard spoke up. We don't need an official marriage to be committed to each other. But maybe we need some kind of ceremony, said Rachel, something that marks our commitment as a family. A family ceremony, said Jennifer, where we promise to take care of each other, of Lily, and to keep our family together. Lily would love that, said Richard. Love what? Asked Lily's sleepy voice from the doorway. She had woken up and come downstairs for a drink of water. We were talking about having a family ceremony, Rachel explained. Like a wedding. Like a family commitment, said Jennifer. Even better. Can I help plan it? Of course you can. Then let's do it in the yard, with flowers and a big table where everyone can sign a paper promising to be family forever. Sounds perfect, said Richard. And can I invite everyone? Uncle Thomas, the cousins, Sarah, Earl? You can invite all of our extended family, Rachel agreed. Lily went back to bed radiant, but not before hugging the 3 adults. Thank you for letting me have the coolest family in the world. When she went upstairs, the three remained silent for a few minutes, each processing how a 7-year-old girl had managed to create something they had never imagined possible. A family based purely on love, choice, and mutual commitment. "She's going to change the world one day," said Jennifer. "She already changed ours," replied Richard. And at that moment, under the stars of Harmony Creek, they knew they had found something more valuable than any company or conventional success. A family that chose daily to love, protect, and grow together. A year after the family ceremony, which had been held in the yard with the presence of all of Lily's extended family, the 8-year-old girl made a discovery that brought the last and most surprising twist to their lives. It was a Saturday morning when Lily found an old box in the attic while looking for birthday decorations. Inside the box were old letters, documents, and yellowed photographs that caught her attention. "Richard, Jennifer, Rachel!" she yelled from the attic. "Come see what I found!" The three rushed upstairs, worried about Lily's urgent tone. They found her sitting on the floor, surrounded by old papers, with a look of fascination on her face. "What did you find, sweetie?" asked Rachel. "Letters, and look at this picture," she said, holding up a black-and-white photograph. The photo showed a young woman of about 20 holding a baby. On the back, someone had written, "Carol Smith and daughter, 1965. "But that can't be right," said Jennifer, taking the photo. "Carol told me she never had biological children." "Look at this letter," said Lily, handing over a yellowed envelope. Richard carefully opened the letter, which was addressed to Carol Smith. As he read, his expression changed from curiosity to absolute shock. "What does it say?" asked Rachel impatiently. "It's a letter from a young woman named Mary Joaquina Silva from 1989. She's thanking Carol for raising her and says she's pregnant, but she can't take care of the baby." "Mary Joaquina! Joaquina!" exclaimed Rachel. "That was the name of the sister Grandma said was my mother." "Keep reading," said Jennifer nervously. "Mother Carol, I know I'm not your blood daughter, but you raised me with love when my real mother abandoned me. Now I'm in the same situation, pregnant and unable to raise a child. I leave my daughter with you, knowing she will receive the same love I received. Her name is Rachel, and she's all I have that's good in the world." The silence that followed was absolute. Rachel fell into an old chair in the attic, her face pale with shock. "That means," she began. "That you were also abandoned as a baby at Carol's door," completed Richard, "just like Lily." "So Rachel isn't my blood sister," said Lily slowly, "but she's my heart sister because we were raised by the same grandma?" "Exactly," said Jennifer, hugging both Lily and Rachel. Rachel began to cry, but they weren't tears of sadness. "Now I understand why Grandma invented the story of Joaquina. She was retelling her own story of abandonment and acceptance, and why she accepted me so easily when I showed up with Lily," added Richard. "She knew exactly what it meant to save an abandoned child." Lily stood up and hugged Rachel. "Does this change anything for you?" "It changes everything, and it changes nothing," replied Rachel, wiping away the tears. "It changes because now I understand my own history. It doesn't change because you're still my heart sister." "See if there are any more letters," suggested Jennifer. They spent the entire morning examining the contents of the box. There were letters from various young women over the years, all thanking Carol for taking care of their children. There were birth certificates, informal adoption documents, and photographs of at least 12 different children. "Carol cared for 12 abandoned children over 40 years, said Richard, amazed. "She was practically a one-person orphanage." "And she never told anyone," said Rachel. "Never bragged, never asked for recognition. She just did what she thought was right," said Lily, "just like you did for me." The discovery brought a new dimension to their understanding of Carol and their own stories. More importantly, it confirmed something Lily had always insisted on. Family was who chose to love and care for, not who shared blood. That afternoon, they decided to look for some of the other children Carol had raised. Sarah, who remained a friend of the family, helped to locate addresses. "This is incredible," said Sarah, examining the documents. "Carol Smith should have received some kind of official recognition for what she did." "She did," said Lily. "She received the love of all the children she saved." A week later, something extraordinary happened. News of the discovery spread through Harmony Creek, and one by one the children Carol had raised began to appear. Peter, now a 35-year-old engineer. Carmen, a 28-year-old teacher. Robert, a 40-year-old doctor. Joseph, a 45-year-old farmer. And many others, all with similar stories. They had been abandoned as babies, raised by Carol with love and dedication, and then helped to build their own lives. "Let's do something to honor her," suggested Peter during an impromptu meeting at Richard's house. "What kind of something?" asked Carmen. "A shelter for abandoned children," said Robert. "In her name." "I'll help with the funding," offered Richard immediately. "We'll all help," said Joseph. "Everyone contributes what they can," Lily spoke up. "Can I help too?" "How?" asked Peter. "By teaching math to the children and telling them that heart families are as real as blood families." 6 months later, the Carol Smith Shelter for Children was inaugurated. It was a large and welcoming house with colorful rooms, a library, a game room, and a garden where the children could play. Lily, now 9 years old, had become a kind of older sister to all the children who arrived at the center. She taught them math, told them stories about her own journey, and above all, showed them that it was possible to build beautiful families even after the worst starts. "You know what I learned?" she said to Richard one afternoon as they watched the children at the center playing in the garden. "What?" "That Grandma Carol didn't just save Rachel and me. She saved you too." "How so?" "You were sad and alone before you found me. Taking care of me taught you to be happy again." Richard smiled, impressed once again by Lily's wisdom. "And Jennifer?" "Jennifer was afraid to love. Taking care of me taught her to be brave." "And Rachel?" "Rachel was lost without knowing who she really was. Discovering our story taught her that identity doesn't come from where we're born, but from how we choose to live." And at that moment, Jennifer and Rachel joined them on the porch, watching the activity at the center. "Lily," said Jennifer, "there's something we want to tell you." "What?" "We decided to adopt more children," said Rachel. "A family like ours has room to grow." "Really? I'm going to have more siblings?" "If you want," said Richard. "I want to very much. But can I choose together?" "Of course. After all, you're the expert at building families." That night during dinner, Lily made a toast. "I want to thank you for everything that has happened in my life." "Even the difficult parts?" asked Jennifer. "Especially the difficult parts, because without them, you never would have found me, and I never would have found you." "And what do you wish for the future?" asked Rachel. "I want to help more children find their families. I want to use my math skills to do something good in the world. And I want our family to keep growing with love." "Those are beautiful wishes," said Richard. "And they'll all come true," said Lily, with the confidence she always demonstrated, "because I've discovered that when people come together to do good things, anything is possible." 5 years later, Lily Allen Simmons Sterling, now 14 years old, had become one of the most brilliant students in Harmony Creek, with plans to study engineering to create technologies that would help abandoned children. The Carol Smith Center had served more than 100 children, and many of them were now part of the extended family that Lily had created. Richard, Jennifer, and Rachel had adopted 3 more children over the years, and their home had become an example in the community of how unconventional families could function beautifully. "You know what the best part of all this is?" said Lily one night, as the whole family, now 7 people, ate dinner together. "What?" they all asked in unison. "That it started with a girl asking for water at a diner and turned into a family that is changing the world, one child at a time." And she was right. What had begun as a moment of cruelty had transformed into the most beautiful story of love, redemption, and hope that Harmony Creek had ever seen. A story that proved that sometimes the happiest endings come from the most difficult beginnings, and that family is really about the people we choose to love, and who choose to love us back. That night, as Lily slept surrounded by siblings she had helped to choose, in a house full of love she had helped to build, she dreamed of birds flying free under an infinite sky of possibilities. And somewhere, Carol Smith smiled, knowing that her little smart girl had learned the most important lesson of all, that multiplied love never diminishes. It only grows and spreads, creating waves of kindness that can change the entire world.